Right guys, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to another video. In this one I'm just going to be showing you how to change the two Freehub bearings in your Nukeproof Neutron V2 Shimano style Freehub body. So let's go ahead, let's run through the steps. Right, so here we have the Freehub body, looks like that. Now when you removed it from the axle, then you could be left with the collar sat there like that on it if it didn't stay on the axle. So make sure you just take that out of there, the end. Then the first thing you've got to do is, you see there's a rubber seal covering that bearing in here, so we'll remove that. And also while I've got it in my hand, you can see through it. Down inside there you see the bearing this end, and there's one down in the bottom, and in between them there's a metal collar. So that collar, you need to be able to move that left, right, up, down. So don't stick anything metal in there and put a scratch on it, because if you try and get it back over the axle and you've damaged it, then it won't slide back over very easily because you put a mark on it. This is the same size as the axle. So what you need to do is just get the handle end of a screwdriver to move it with, plastic. Then you can just move it and it goes off centre, you can see there. So it moves like that, easily goes off centre. So you just need to make sure you be able to do that to move it around. But the first job is to get that seal out of the end. So to remove that dust seal out of the end, what you need is a small screwdriver, and be careful not to damage that seal. So you just put under there like that, on top of the bearing as such, and you should just be able to flick up on it. You might have to do it on a couple of sides, or just work your way round to flick it up, out. Depends if yours is stuck in there. A bit harder than this one was. So you move the seal out like that. Just be careful not to stab a hole in it or anything. They are hard plastic. Then you can see the bearing in the end there. So let's go ahead, let's get removing the bearings. So what we do, starting with this end, what I'll do is I'll just put the screwdriver down in there and we'll just move that collar, push it over to one side like that, as far as you can get it to go over. And then once you've done that, what you can do is, I've got a block of wood here on a hard surface. If you've got a bench, a good substantial bench, you can do it on that. Like I said, I'm using nothing special here, just a block of wood on the floor just to show you, demonstrate it, that you don't need anything, any special tools or anything like that to do it with. So what you want to do then is get yourself a punch, so as it sits down inside and rests on the lip of the bearing that you can see now. So it's going to come out this end where the cassette lock ring would be. So it rests on there, and then you have to move the collar over to hit it out straight. There's no point in hitting on one point only, you've got to keep on moving it across, just so as you can hit it out straight. So I'll just rest it on there, give it a few taps like that, and then sometimes the collar goes loose and you should be able to push it over your finger out the way. Now you won't need the screwdriver, so I've just moved it over like that to the opposite side, and do the same thing. And as the bearing starts to go out, the collar just becomes completely loose, so you can just work your way around the bearing. Like that. And there's the bearing with the spacer collar inside. So that's those two removed. Then we've got a bearing, you can see there down in the bottom. So to remove that, if you can see it or not, there's a circlip holding that, a snap ring holding that in. So we need to get that snap ring off first. Right, so to do that, we've just got a pair of snap ring pliers like that, and we just put it down inside in the two holes in there on the circlip itself. Locate those in there. Might be a bit tricky to do, but then squeeze it together and then pull it out like that. Just hold on to it when you let go of the pliers in case it goes flying off and you can't find it. So there's the clip. And then we're left with the bearing down in the bottom there, as you can see. So let's go ahead, let's remove that. So to remove the one down in the bottom there, what we'll do is we'll put it on the block of wood like that. Then you get yourself a 14mm deep drive socket. I'll just rest that in there like that. And then I'll go ahead and tap that round. And by doing that, as you can see, the bearings coming out all the way and out this end. So I'll just rest that back in there and just keep on tapping it through. And there's the lower bearing. So once you've cleaned up inside where the bearing's going to go, of any dirt and anything in there, give it a wipe round in there to clean it up, and we'll go ahead, we'll put a couple of new bearings in. So now we've got the Freehub cleaned up inside, what you want to do is get some grease, put down where the bearing's going to sit in the bottom there. Just put a smear around there, like that. And also on, just put a smear around the whole inside as well, just a light smear around there, because the bearing's got to go down through into the bottom, so just help it go through. And then once you've got your new bearings, I'll put the size of these bearings in the description below, just in case you want to know what they are, so you can order a couple up. Always get quality bearings, don't ever use any cheap ones because they just don't last. It's false economy. So put a smear of grease around it, and the side that's going to be facing down that you don't see, just put a light smear of grease over the face of it, just to help keep the moisture out of the bearing, and help it try and prolong its life a bit. So once you've done that, just locate it in the top of the Freehub there, and make sure it's going in straight, don't put it in crooked. And then once you've sat it there, what you want to do is get yourself a 20mm socket. That's 20mm. So obviously this one's a deeper drive socket because it's got to go down inside like that. You can use a short one, just put an extension on the top of it, bar, little stubby extension bar if you haven't got a deep drive one. So we just rest that over the bearing like that, and we gently just tap that in. And just remove the socket, make sure it's going in square, don't hit it in crooked. Just do it again. And you remove the socket like that, and there's the bearing installed down in the bottom there. So we go ahead, get the clip back on it. So before we put the clip back in, we'll just put a bit of grease over the face of the bearing like that, and then get the snap ring again, insert a clip, then put it over your pliers like that, and then lower it down inside. All the way to the bottom, and then just make sure, just push on the clip just to make sure it locates in there, like so. Now we're ready to put the spacer in. So get your spacer, I'll just put a bit of grease over one end, right on the end of it, like that. Just help it stick it in position down in there. while we're installing the top bearing. So if you put it in and line it up with the bearing in the bottom that you just put in, and then with your top bearing again just put a smear of grease around it before putting it in, and then on the faces you don't see, it's going to be inside the Freehub again, put some grease all over the face of it like that, just to help them stop the moisture getting in, because it's the moisture that ruins the bearings in the first place. And then all you do is again just sit that in position like that, and then again using your socket to put it in, make sure that it's going in straight, put your socket over it again, you've got the bearing installed there, there it is in there. So what we do, we just put some grease over the face of it like that before we put the seal back in there. So get your seal again, drop that in position like that. You should just be able to push it down in place with the end of your finger, sit it right down on the bearing like that. So there's the seal put in, the bearings. So before you slide it back onto your axle, remember to put some grease down inside it to put it before you put it on the axle, and also make sure that the spacer in between is lined up with the bearings, otherwise when you go and slide it back on it won't go on. So make sure that, again, if you've got to line it up, just use something plastic there and just make sure they're lined up so you know it's going to go back on. So I hope you found the video helpful. If you did, remember to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for more cycle related content. Till next one, ride safe and I'll see you then.